The prey, the victim, or the victor? Which one is it? How do you identify? And is it possible to be all three? I want to welcome you to or back. I'm Crystal, and on this podcast, we talk all things spirituality. We get caught up in the 3D. We often forget that it's in this duality that we came here for an extension. But it's the strife, the grief, the hustle that we forget. And today's episode is no different. And I want to talk about what happens if you've ever gotten entangled in a personality disorder that thrives in chaos. And if you've never been in that dynamic, I'm sure you know somebody that there's some key things that I think everybody should know. And I think there may be a few key things here that may help you or help you understand what somebody else may be going through. Because when you're going through a relationship recovery with this kind of dynamic, it's more than just moving on. There is a literal, physical, brain, body, spiritual withdrawal that happens. It's detoxification at its finest. And it's also encapsulated with a lot of excruciating pain. So how does that happen? I don't think there's anybody that ever really wants to walk into a relationship and say, hey, sign me up for the domestic violence. Now let's clarify. Domestic violence is more than just physical. It's mental and emotional. It's spiritual too. The warfare is real. So how is it attracted? There's a lot of different dynamics that come into this, a lot that we won't cover. But I'd like to say that if you have ever attracted somebody, a personality trait that thrives in chaos, the darker the entity, if you will, is a direct correlation just to how sovereign and beautiful and light that you are. The love and grace that you have to offer to this world. Alan Watts said it wonderfully. He said, in some weird way, evil, darkness is a necessity. Because without it, you can't know the good. Likewise, to however bad you think your predator was, is a contrast to just how beautiful, and I believe this with all my soul, the grace and beauty of your soul that you're here to learn, to discover, and to give grace to others, even if you haven't come full circumference to that. But that being said, in your goodness, in your high frequency, in the love that you have to offer this world, also comes, especially in the beginning, if you've attracted this type of relationship, rose-colored shades, if you will. It's seeing the world in the same projection of your own heart. That I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. My intentions are true. So does that make you ignorant, naive, stupid when you attract this type of relationship? Well, to those that are categorized in the cluster B personality, they might actually say, you got what you deserve. But they have a way of targeting specific individuals. That includes the traits that they would maybe say you were stupid about, but they'd have to admit that they lack within themselves. Some of these traits of your pure heart, your pure grace and love, are identified early on. Your infinite potential capacity for grace, to always give redemption, accept apologies, be a people pleaser. They identify early on if you are a type that they can disrespect, even neglect with things such as hoovering or discarding, and know whether or not you'll take them back. And one of the best ways they can do this is by looking for abrasions in your lack of boundaries, by giving micro violations early on. Seeing how much you allow disrespect, to slide without being noticed, they'll identify you as a target. And it's not because you were stupid, but because you were open. And they were operating in a frequency of extraction. They look for people who are anchored in their own world. Maybe that's the part that's naive, right? You're functioning in your own world. You are upholding your own frequency. You have empathy. You have light. Life is an energy that attracts the predator. It's the analogy of the moth that's even attracted to your light. And when they attach to you, they intentionally begin to create havoc. They create a world of a 3D reality that consists of jealousy, drama, anything to bring down your frequency and to keep it in a low vibration. So let's come full circumference. Does this make you stupid? Does this make you naive? Does this make you ignorant? I liken it to an analogy of a bird that's been raised in a sanctuary. They don't know the hunter. They're just in their pureness, just being. And until they're released into the real world where they may see it or be exposed to it, they don't know any better. Likewise, you're radiating on this soul purity, and then you're released into this 3D world. You just don't know better yet. I wouldn't say that makes you ignorant. I wouldn't say that makes you dumb or naive. I just think you don't know until you know. But what happens when you begin to know? That's the next question, right? What happens when the first real betrayal, right? We're done with the micro violations. And the first real heartache, sense of betrayal hits home. In the moment where we begin to reflect, we begin to analyze those gut feelings, the red flags, and maybe the first time we begin to realize that we have prioritized safety, which is usually associated to childhood wounds, which is another video, but we've prioritized it over our internal intuition. Another caveat to this. Once that first betrayal has happened, there's been a lot of parallels, a lot of paradigms that have played out to bring you to this first dynamic, right? So were you a prey in the beginning? Yeah, I'd say you were. So now are you a victim? But by the time you've come to this first real betrayal, the wind out of you, and you're going, what the hell's going on? You've already been probably love bombed. You've probably undergone the boiling of the frog. And when I said that they energetically attached to you and your stability, they also inserted an IV of toxins, the cancer that is slowly dripping into the energetic weaves of who you are. Energy is transferable, it's very real, and it's shared. So even if you've had this first realization, these dynamics, these parallels have probably very much already happened. So going back to my question, are you a victim? Well, I would say this is where we get confused with love and the distortion of it, and actually have become probably better understood as addicted. Between intermittent reinforcements, love bombing, breadcrumbing, malicious tactics to ensure your good heart is locked in, you have become addicted to your predator, that who you think you love, in such a way that you yearn for your hit as bad as a heroine does for theirs. Addiction that has happened in the brain. And thus, even if you come across your first real betrayal, the ability to pull away is excruciating hard. And what you should know too is more times you pull away and then you come back, which is and there's no judgment, but it should be a fair warning. More times this happens, the bond actually gets thickened, making it harder and harder to break each time. If you can, One of the best things you can teach, like your children, if you can, for yourself, is once you have those first warning signs, is to walk away immediately. But if you haven't, because you weren't taught that, because you didn't know better, you can find yourself kind of a victim to this. I want to better state that. Are you a victim? I would say actually more, at this point, you become a prisoner to the trauma bond, the Stockholm Syndrome. The same person that will create the chaos in your life and be the one that will come rescue you from it. But this is also a good place too, where we can take note that in the trauma bond, we begin to hit rock bottom. The betrayals have probably come tenfold. It's more than just the first awareness, right? It's that entering into that shame and that apathy and that guilt of, why am I incapable of walking away? Why do I, even amongst our fights, if I just get that one hit, like a fiend, you're soothed until your next craving. So while you're a prisoner to the trauma bond, you're addicted to it, we're beginning to hit rock bottom. In that, it's where you're in that guilt and shame, apathy, that you can't walk away. You don't know why you keep on going back. And because of that, in that same rock bottom, the abuse gets worse. Because in their head, you're not going anywhere. They've got you locked. They can treat you and do to you as they please. Many of them really do look at you as a possession, that they've invested their time and now they own you. This is a good parallel to the distinction of how you view relationships and the way they see it. And this can carry on, but here is the crack of hope. It is until it's not. When everybody has their breaking point. When something happens and things begin to shift. In the breaking point, there are usually two ways these relationships typically will rev off. You've got the one side that I'm going to refer to as the gatekeeper, in that you are forced to fight to get out. You're going to be the one that does the spiritual surgery. You're the one that's going to cut the cord. Then there's the other side of the coin, right? It's the same coin, just different side. There's not one better, one less. But on the other side, I'm going to call it the initiator. This is the discarded path. This is when, instead of cutting the cord, you've been pushed into the void. When you've been stripped of everything that you've given and you feel extremely unworthy, you feel empty. And you probably are empty, especially because in the discard, they fully have utilized you and drained you of your life force. Thank God it can be refilled, right? But they have. And that's usually when the discard happens. And I like to think about it on this side of the coin, in the initiation, if you would. The universe protecting what was left of your spirit. But regardless of what path you've taken, whether it was the gatekeeper or the initiator, right? If you did the spiritual surgery yourself or else you were pushed into the void, it doesn't matter, because in the end, the paths come together. And that is that whether you were forced to cut the cords, this is the moment when you get to find your strength to walk away and learn to devalue the predator's opinion. Or if you're on the other side of the equation where you were discarded, in this way, you were pushed to learn that you're resilient enough to exist without their validation. So once we get pushed into this void, we're beginning to enter the victor, if you will. The similarities that are encountered, one is the cognitive dissonance. Whether you had to cut the cords or you were discarded, there comes this moment when you really have to analyze. It's in this accountability of, what did I just encounter? What is this? Recognizing that the facade you dealt with, all the love bombing, all those precious moments, all those things that reeled you in, was a facade. And facing that facade and facing the reality in this cognitive dissonance, there's nothing really easy about it, guys. You realize in this moment that you have spent a lot of your energy, your prayers, your loyalty, your love to an empty shell. And to admit it was all is something really hard to wrap your head around. That is a cognitive dissonance. When you've had all these moments of bonding, trauma bond, moments that you thought were love, addiction, and having to face the realization that your life, the way you had come to understand it, was a lie, and breaking that and facing the truth is complete devastation. It's betrayal it's embodying, embracing the betrayal at its pinnacle, if you will. And in that, if everything, the whole world as you knew it was a lie, then your reality as you know it is a lie. And what you think and everything that was once stable has been pulled from underneath you. This can be a line of losing your sanity. And coming out of that, there's really no way to overcome cognitive dissonance other than facing the facts and repeating it and seeing it and almost brainwashing yourself to see the truth that you couldn't see before. And everything in your body, the way our brain is programmed, is going to fight you that tooth and nail because it's looking for survival. And if everything that we knew was stripped from us, then we're in danger. And in this danger, recognizing that nothing's stable and we lose our line of sanity, if you will, we also enter into a dark night of the soul. This is the moment the abyss becomes unbearable. This is the moment we begin to really pull back layers. This is the moment that we realize in moments of why did I tolerate? Why did I endure? What was it? What the predator did was in fact just pull back a wound that was never fully healed. Many of these wounds, many of these betrayals, actually are a signal back to somewhere in our childhood that was probably suppressed, never fully understood, never fully acknowledged, and is asking to be seen. In a way, it's never really bestowed from them, but they're there to remind us of what we never articulated, witnessed, and held early on, because we were too young to know any better. And in this dark night, and we strip away the distortion, basically, and this is also the most excruciating pain, guys. It's also the most efficient. It's where we get back to 0 point, back to our own energy. And I'll assure you this, as we pull back each layer, whatever it is, from whatever wound that's being asked to look at, because there's a 360-degree area to look at these wounds, right? And the way they penetrated our resilience, everything we thought we knew. Here's a hint. At the core of every layer that we get to, it comes to one thing. That is self-love. And in the discovery of self-love, do we really begin to distinguish what we thought was love and what was survival? And as we begin to implement true self-love, new realization, our reality is reconstructed to a truth. When we're living in the pathological lie, as we're facing our cognitive dissonance, as we begin to strip away all that was once a lie, and we go into the abyss and there's nothing left, that's where everything begins. This is where creation begins, on a solid foundation of truth, of understanding, awareness. And once you understand, once you come full circumference to this self-love, you begin to really identify what that means. And things like forgiveness, not just forgiving them, but forgiving yourself. Learning what boundaries means, identifying your true heart, your intentions, gaining a new clarity on life. This is where I like to think life really begins. So once we make it to the understanding that every layer is pulling us back to that of the center of self-love, understanding what it is, right? So we go through this void, and in this void, we're facing all the cognitive dissonance, all the lies, all the things that were an illusion. It's only in this abyss that creation really begins on truth, that we begin to create a solid foundation that is based on love and light. Ultimately, and it's a process, because whether you've been discarded or you chose to cut the cords, if you haven't made it all the way through there and you still have the bundle of resentment, if you still feel the hurt, you still feel like the I'm a victim. I have hatred, and I don't know if I could ever forgive my predator. I want to leave you with this, because really to give anything to them, your hate, your resentment, is to leak your energy. And I want to remind you, many of these individuals are hollow. They'll take anything they can get. And in a way, you're still feeding the beast. The best thing you can do is become whole and nothing them. But I understand if you're angry. And I found this quote, and I think it's very fitting. If you're in that place, you have the right to be angry. It's not negative or wrong. You don't have to condone someone's actions or pretend you're okay with them in order to be a good or spiritual person. Just know that you have the power to move beyond your pain when you're ready. You have the power to find lessons in your heartache, gains in your losses, and reasons to forgive. It may take time, and it might not be easy, but it's possible to heal and move on. That quote was from Lori DeShane, and I think it's very relevant for those that are still in the healing stage. But no, if you still, I kindly and gracefully say, if you still have resentment, if you still hold anger, there's still room for growth. You haven't made it fully through the void. How do you know when you are? I think Dr. Joe Dispenza said it perfectly. Wisdom is when you have a memory and are no longer emotionally charged by it, but you learned from the event. That's the ultimate goal. Because in that ultimate goal, you as the victor no longer need the predator to be punished, for you are already whole. The karmic lessons, it's another video in itself, but the universe is divinely orchestrated. There is a divine balance to every consequence, to every action. There's a knowing that it's all being settled and orchestrated for the best of all. And I want to just wrap this up as remembering, as we move from the prey, as we move from the victim, as we move into the victor, these dynamics change us. It causes trauma. And I like to say, trauma will change you. It changes you. But the healing transforms you. I think that's what you're here for. You're a beautiful soul. Your light is magnificent. And you can't know one without knowing what it's not. So if you've attracted these relationships, just know that I know. That I see your beauty. I see your light. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning. Keep healing. Keep doing the work. And as the divine has told me, God promises the blessings to those who do the work. And I stand by that. I've seen it in my own life. Stay strong, loves. And until next time, I'm sending you love and light. Please help me by either subscribing, if you haven't yet, to the channel. I'm on Apple and podcasts now. This will be the second episode that goes up. Give me a rating, so follow it, I don't know, subscribe, and write a review. This is how our soul brothers and sisters come together, our tribe. And we know we're not alone. And just know I love you guys so much. And then until next time, love and light. Namaste.